Good evening, and welcome to Third Church, New York City. Let's begin by singing hymn number 74. I'll read the first verse. Go forth and stand upon the mount, for truth is at thy side. The very rocks may seem to break, and earth to open wide. Yet error's tempest and its fire, before that still small voice, retire. Hymn number 74. I'll read from the Bible and correlative passages from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. This week's readings are inspired by the concept of God's control over the universe. The Holy Bible. This is the King James Version. Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Proverbs. The Lord by wisdom hath founded the earth. By understanding hath he established the heavens. By his knowledge the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop down the dew. 1 Chronicles. Let the heavens be glad, and let the earth rejoice, and let men say among the nations, the Lord reigneth. Let the sea roar, and the fullness thereof. Let the fields rejoice, and all that is therein. Then shall the trees of the wood sing out at the presence of the Lord, because he cometh to judge the earth. O give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, and his mercy endureth forever. Genesis. But there went up a mist from the earth. Joel. The word of the Lord that came to Joel. Awake, ye drunkards, and weep, and howl, all ye drinkers of wine, for it is cut off from your mouth. For a nation is come up upon my land, strong and without number, whose teeth are the teeth of a lion, and he hath the cheek teeth of a great lion. He hath laid my vine waste, and barked my fig tree. He hath made it clean bare, and cast it away. The field is wasted, the land mourneth. The corn is wasted, the new wine is dried up, the oil languisheth. Gird yourselves, and lament, ye priests. Howl, ye ministers of the altar. Come, lie all night in sackcloth, ye ministers of God. For the meat offering and the drink offering is withholden from the house of your God. Sanctify ye a fast. Call a solemn assembly. Gather the elders and all the inhabitants of the land into the house of the Lord your God, and cry unto the Lord. Alas for the day of the Lord is at hand, and as of destruction from the Almighty shall it come. O Lord, to thee will I cry. For the fire hath devoured the pastures of the wilderness, and the flame hath burned all the trees of the field. The beasts of the field cry also unto thee, for the rivers of waters are dried up, and the fire hath devoured the pastures of the wilderness. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand. A day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains. A great people and a strong, there hath not been ever the like. The earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. And the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great. For he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? Therefore also now, saith the Lord, turn ye even to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning, and rend your heart, and not your garments, and turn unto the Lord your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repenteth him of the evil. Yea, the Lord will answer and say unto his people, Behold, I will send you corn, and wine, and oil, and you shall be satisfied therewith. And I will no more make you a reproach among the heathen. Fear not, O land, be glad and rejoice, for the Lord will do great things. Be not afraid, ye beasts of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness do spring. For the tree beareth her fruit, the fig tree and the vine do yield their strength. Be glad then, ye children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God. For he hath given you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain. And the floors shall be full of wheat, and the vats shall overflow with wine and oil. And I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, the cankerworm and the caterpillar. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Isaiah. For I, the Lord thy God, will hold thy right hand, saying unto thee, Fear not, I will help thee. When the poor and needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue faileth for thirst, I, the Lord, will hear them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. I will open rivers in high places, and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water, and the dry land springs of water. I will plant in the wilderness the cedar, and the myrtle and the oil tree. I will set in the desert the fir tree, and the pine, and the box tree together, that they may see and know and consider and understand together that the hand of the Lord hath done this. 1 Kings. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life. He went himself a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him, and said unto him, Arise, and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baken on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again. And the angel of the Lord came again the second time, and touched him, and said, Arise, and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. And he arose and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God. And he came thither unto a cave, and lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said unto him, Go forth, and stand upon the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still, small voice. Mark. And the same day when the even was come, he saith unto them, Let us pass over into the other side. And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him, even as he was, in the ship, and there were also with him other little ships. And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship, so that it was now full. And he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. And they awake him, and say unto him, Master, carest thou not that we perish? And he arose and rebuked the wind, and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Psalms. Oh, that men would praise the Lord for his goodness, and for his wonderful works to the children of men. And let them sacrifice the sacrifices of thanksgiving, and declare his works with rejoicing. They that go down to the sea in ships, that do business in great waters, these see the works of the Lord, and his wonders in the deep. For he commanded, and raised the stormy wind, which lifted up the waves thereof. They mount up to the heavens, they go down again to the depths. Their soul is melted because of trouble. They reel to and fro and stagger like drunken men, and are at their wits' end. Then they cry unto the Lord in their trouble, and he bringeth them out of their distresses. He maketh the storm a calm, so that the waves thereof are still. Matthew. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Whosoever heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Psalms. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretcheth out the heavens like a curtain, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind, who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flaming fire, who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. Thou coverest it with the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. Ephesians. I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you, that ye walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called, that we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive. But speaking the truth in love, may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ. And from the Science and Health, with Key to the Scriptures. Mind's control over the universe, including man, is no longer an open question, but is demonstrable science. The still, small voice of scientific thought reaches out over continent and ocean to the globe's remotest bound. The inaudible voice of truth is to the human mind as when a lion roareth. It is heard in the desert and in dark places of fear. It arouses the seven thunders of evil and stirs their latent forces to utter the full diapason of secret tones. Then is the power of truth demonstrated, made manifest in the destruction of error. The infinite truth of the Christ cure has come to this age through a still, small voice, through silent utterances and divine anointing, which quicken and increase the beneficial effects of Christianity. I long to see the consummation of my hope, namely the student's higher attainments in this line of light. Because truth is infinite, error should be known as nothing. Because truth is omnipotent in goodness, Error, truth's opposite, has no might. The effects of Christian Science are not so much seen as felt. It is the still, small voice of truth, uttering itself. We are either turning away from this utterance, or we are listening to it and going up higher. Willingness to become as a little child and to leave the old for the new renders thought receptive of the advanced idea. Gladness to leave the false landmarks and joy to see them disappear. This disposition helps to precipitate the ultimate harmony. Nature voices natural, spiritual law and divine love. But human belief misinterprets nature. Arctic regions, sunny tropics, giant hills, winged winds, mighty billows, verdant vales, festive flowers, and glorious heavens all point to mind, the spiritual intelligence they reflect. The floral apostles are hieroglyphs of deity. Suns and planets teach grand lessons. The stars make night beautiful, and the leaflet turns naturally towards the light. In the order of science, in which the principle is above what it reflects, all is one grand concord. Change this statement, suppose mind to be governed by matter, or soul and body, and you lose the keynote of being, and there is continual discord. Error soweth the wind, and reapeth the whirlwind. Erring power is a material belief, a blind, miscalled force, the offspring of will and not of wisdom, of the mortal mind and not of the immortal. It is the headlong cataract, the devouring flame, the tempest's breath. It is lightning and hurricane, all that is selfish, wicked, dishonest, and impure. Moral and spiritual might belong to Spirit, who holds the wind in his fists. And this teaching accords with science and harmony. Your influence for good depends on the weight you throw into the right scale. The good you do and embody gives you the only power obtainable. Evil is not power. It is a mockery of strength, which ere long betrays its weakness and falls, never to rise. Mind, supreme over all its formations and governing them all, is the central sun of its own systems of ideas. The light and the life and light of all its own vast creation, and man is tributary to divine mind. The material and mortal body, or mind, is not the man. The world would collapse without mind, without the intelligence which holds the winds in its grasp. The compounded minerals or aggregated substances composing the earth, the relations which constituent masses hold to each other, the magnitudes, distances, and revolutions of the celestial bodies are of no real importance when we remember that they all must give place to the spiritual fact by the translation of man and the universe back into spirit. In proportion as this is done, man and the universe will be found harmonious and eternal. This material world is even now becoming the arena for conflicting forces. On one side, there will be discord and dismay. On the other side, there will be science and peace. The breaking up of material beliefs may seem to be famine and pestilence, want and woe, sin, sickness, and death, which assume new phases until their nothingness appears. These disturbances will continue until the end of error, when all discord will be swallowed up in spiritual truth. Mortal error will vanish in a moral chemicalization. This mental fermentation has begun and will continue until all errors of belief yield to understanding. As this consummation draws nearer, he who has shaped his course in accordance with divine science will endure to the end. There is no vapid fury of mortal mind, expressed in earthquake, wind, wave, lightning, fire, bestial ferocity, and this so-called mind is self-destroyed. The manifestations of evil which counterfeit divine justice are called in the scriptures the anger of the Lord. In reality, they show the self-destruction of error or matter and point to matter's opposite, the strength and permanency of spirit. Christian Science brings to light truth and its supremacy, universal harmony, the entireness of God, good, and the nothingness of evil. Love will finally mark the hour of harmony, and spiritualization will follow, for love is spirit. If mind is foremost and superior, let us rely upon mind, which needs no cooperation from lower powers, even if these so-called powers are real. The Revelator tells us of a new heaven and a new earth. Have you ever pictured this heaven and earth inhabited by beings under the control of supreme wisdom? Let us rid ourselves of the belief that man is separated from God and obey only the divine principle, life, and love. Here is the great point of departure for all true spiritual growth. Let us learn of the real and eternal and prepare for the reign of spirit, the kingdom of heaven, the reign and rule of universal harmony, which cannot be lost nor remain forever unseen. Let unselfishness, goodness, mercy, justice, health, holiness, love, the kingdom of heaven, reign within us, and sin, disease, and death will diminish until they finally disappear. Let us rejoice that we are subject to the divine powers that be. Such is the true science of being. Any other theory of life or God is delusive and mythological. Let's pray for the congregation, first silently, then repeat together the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Let's sing hymn number 41. Come, labor on. Who dares stand idle on the harvest plain, while all around him waves the golden grain? And to each servant does the Master say, Go, work today. Hymn number 41. This church is a branch of the Mother Church, the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts. We hold Sunday services at 11 a.m. and Wednesday testimony meetings at 7:30 p.m. We also have services in Spanish, Sundays at 1 p.m. and Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. Our services are now held online and in person, and all are welcome. Third Church offers Sunday school classes online and in person for children and teens. At Sunday school, students learn how much God loves them and cares for them. They also learn about the Bible characters and lessons and the healing power of truth. For more information on times and classes, please send an email to thirdchurch@thirdchurchnyc.com. Third Church maintains a reading room on the lower level of this building. The reading room provides a quiet place for prayer and study where all are welcome. Here you may also purchase books and recordings on Christian Science. The reading room has the latest issues of the Christian Science Monitor, an award-winning international news weekly available to read or purchase. Reading room hours are Monday through Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. Christian Science is practical and it heals. Our meeting is now open for all to share experiences of healing and spiritual insights that show God's ever-presence and power in their lives. If you're listening by telephone and would like to share a testimony, press star, then the number 6. Our technician will be listening for you and will unmute your line. Please speak directly into the microphone of your phone. Don't use the speakerphone. That way we can hear you a little better. If you're watching by Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you for your very interesting and timely readings. The newspapers are filled with stories of extreme weather caused by a rising temperature in our atmosphere on the planet. And it's attributed to climate change. And people are nervous or troubled that this apparently man-made problem is not being coped with in an intelligent way. The readings suggest that God's universe is a spiritual universe, and that spirit is the only power, and that that universe is harmonious, and to fear any other power is not intelligent and not truthful and true to the reality of God's allness. These are very challenging ideas. One can see the evidence of climate change and the bad effects that it's having, and be afraid of it. But on the other hand, if God is all in all, and it's the only cause and creator, then all is good. I'm grateful for Christian Science, that it gives us a basis to pray and for rejecting that which would seem to be an overwhelming discordant power, and to expect that there will be a solution, and that the harmony of God's creation is uninterrupted. One just has to lift consciousness. Mrs. Eddy, in her discussion of Jesus's great blessings to mankind, says that he came to help, but not to relieve anyone of a single responsibility. And I think it's appropriate to say that we have responsibility to do the loving thing, to live our lives in a way that's mindful of our fellow man, and to do that which is intelligent and appropriate under all the circumstances. And to know what is a loving thing to do, and to have the expectation that it will be fruitful and a blessing, is the faith of those who believe in God. And I'm very glad for the readings and for focusing on, is there another power? that we need to fear, or can we turn to the allness of God's power and see it manifested and demonstrated, and not to bury or ignore the challenges called upon to face, but to do so without fear and with the expectation of good. Thank you for your readings.
When I lived in California, I had a car, and I always heard that you should drive defensively. And I was alert, but I thought there's a better way to drive. And like the previous speaker said, and I asked myself, if we really live in a spiritual universe, and if God controls our movements in harmony and beauty, then how would I see that manifested on the road, on the freeways, when I'm commuting or going from one place to another? And as I looked and drove and prayed along these lines, the driving became very harmonious. People never cut me off, never got into the blind spot of my car again. And it was almost as though it were choreographed, with that spiritual hand guiding and guarding everyone. And when I came to New York, I left my car behind and I take the train now. And I continued with that practice of praying on transport. And I'll just share a few things. But the other day, a person got on the train and he was angry and throwing around a lot of ugly words. And at one point he said, "I used to hate white people." And as he did, I just prayed to see him as God's idea. His natural spiritual state is calm and joyful and respected. And the next thing he said was, "I used to have a gun." And then he started walking from his end of the train to my end, and I continued to pray and just see God's love surround him, care for him. And he would point out somebody with expensive tennis shoes or somebody else with a bag of things they had just bought at a store. And as I continued to pray, he walked slower, his voice became quieter, and he sat down and he said in a very kind voice, "What we all need to do is just help each other. We just need to help each other." And then he got up at the next stop and left. But I was grateful that he could leave a little bit of that anger behind. Another point, I was on a train and a guy was asking for money and he came to the front of my train and I was facing him and I closed my eyes and prayed to know that God provides everything we need. God's love, God's care, soul surrounds each one of us and cares for us. And this person, I don't know, well, anyway, he said, "I was going to ask for money, but what I really want to do is ask you for your prayers. I've done some things I haven't been proud of, and I want to change my ways." And then he said, "I thank you all for your prayers," and he left the car. And I'm grateful. I'm just so grateful that I can interact with people in a spiritual way, to see who they really are, to see their reflection of God in their face, in their voice, in their demeanor.
A couple of verses in this week's lesson support your readings very nicely. One is that we are joint heirs with Christ. And in thinking about that verse, we are the possessors of wisdom, understanding, the possessors of that vast spiritual estate called heaven. We are possessors of love, abundance. Well, in heaven, any challenge is already answered. Wisdom has laid out already the answer. Principle is its operations manager, and love is protecting and governing. And that's the way, another verse, that it is on earth. Another verse in the lesson is that God's throne is heaven and earth is his footstool. And God controls in heaven just as he does on earth. So there can't be a challenge that we on earth any differently from any way that it would be handled in heaven. The atmosphere is perfect, just the way each one of us like it. There was a comment today that I heard that it was really hot outside, and that was pretty scary. Well, it can't be scary if you know who is in control. So thank you for the readings. I think it answers a lot of people's concerns right now.
Thank you to you all for your testimonies, your remarks, and your prayers during the service. Let's conclude by singing hymn number 82. I'll read the first verse. God is working his purpose out as year succeeds to year. God is working his purpose out, and the time is drawing near. Nearer and nearer draws the time that shall surely be, when the earth shall be filled with the glory of God, as the waters cover the sea. Hymn number 82.